DCP Player free. Get it now from digital.net.au.
We've got 5 mics. This is the fun part of the show now where we get to be interactive and you can get your questions out there. If I could ask to get the house lights up so we can see who's out there, and please line up by these microphones if you do have any questions. I have a few to start out. I think we heard some terrific perspectives there, and I think the overarching question is that as Jerry started out presenting to us, there are currently 3 deliverable formats going out to theaters, Atmos, Oro 3D, and MDA, and there's a goal here to harmonize those into some sort of universal interoperable standard. Is that really feasible? What kind of obstacles might we have, and what sort of time frame? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, I can jump in there. I mean, it's
Please
absolutely feasible. We can build the most complicated bit stream we want to. Actually, we have freedom to do what we want, but we can certainly build a technology that can carry all of the necessary combined metadata for all the technologies that are up here in place. Again, I mean, in that goal, the overarching goal of that is not the bit stream. It's not trying to move bits between 2 places. We need to make sure that when we're done with this, that it's useful, that we can use it, that it's, it provides the same kind of value that you would get from, another system. It needs to be useful and worth purchasing, worth spending money on. So, again, it's going to be about artistic representation and making sure that things sound right. I mean, in the end, it's got to be useful. So, but technically, we can do it.
Totally agree with Dean. This is totally feasible. I mean, we're not trying to solve climate change here. So, I think there's enough technology and there's enough proposals here and enough experts and people who are working on it. I think that there's no reason at all why we can't not only make this work technically, but commercially for everybody.
Just a couple of comments. Everybody up here, we've all worked together for many years, and people that are involved in this committee, we like working with each other. So it's not like some industries where there's a lot of personal, grudges or anything against people. So we'll get there. You asked the timeline question. That one's kind of more difficult to answer because there are a lot of moving pieces to this. The bit stream is one, but there's also how to get the data moved back and forth, the timing, and Jerry did address this some in his presentation. But how those pieces all fit together and how they get finalized, beta tested, deployed, that's more difficult to answer as the timing perspective, I think.
I think everybody's been very anxious to see a solution to this so they can predict the future more carefully. So I sense that there is a strong sense of urgency throughout the industry on finding a solution for this. But at the same time, standards are an important process. Those of you that are not familiar, SMPTE is a due process standards body accredited with the international community. And that means that there has to be a transparency and openness and opportunity to hear all viewpoints and making sure that everything is taken into consideration, which means it does seem to take long sometimes. Perhaps some of the people in the audience haven't really seen the mysterious process of standards being made. Dean or some of the others, perhaps you could help amplify a little bit on a day in the life of a standards engineer. How does this process work exactly?
Well, we drink a lot of coffee. I know we spend 15 minutes setting up a phone call usually. Sorry, last call was pretty rough. There's a lot of banter that goes on. I mean, we do work together pretty well. People bring their technologies in. We can move back and forth. Sometimes people are looking for a position for their company, and usually when that happens, you'll find 5 or 6 other companies gang up on them and smash them down to the floor and make sure that doesn't happen. So it ends up being, what output comes out of it ends up usually being pretty good. We all work together on it, and we do all bring our technologies to it. So, I mean, I don't know how to say about it. We spend a lot of time on the phone. Does anybody else have anything? Jerry, you spend a lot of time in these.
Well, if you back up and take a look at what happened with DCI and how that all evolved, that started in the year 2000. It took 2 years in SMPTE to figure out how many pixels across it's going to be. And then DCI was formed to accelerate it because SMPTE can't do things. SMPTE, after DCI came out, they came up with a fairly detailed requirements document, which was the DCI spec, which became what's called Interop DCP. And that was in 2005. So 2005 got that. And I think we're sort of at that level here with a variety of working systems in the marketplace. And now we're in the mess, and we're probably in, my guess is if things go well, as I mentioned, I think by next year we should have, in terms of a time frame, I think we'll have a common standard that isn't fully baked, but close enough that we probably can start implementing across the different platforms. And so next year, I suspect we will be using the Interop immersive audio spec, and then it'll take 10 years for SMPTE to finish it. But that's and I say that because here we are, 2014. The DCI was submitted to SMPTE in 2005. We still haven't shipped out very many titles in SMPTE version of the DCP, but this year we're going to do it anyway.
I sense a topic for next year's panel here at CineTechGeek. I think we have a question from the audience.
It's a bit early, but when this standard does evolve, we're actually still running out there today and installing lots of these Oro and Atmos systems. What do you expect in terms of the compatibility? Will it need to be replacement hardware, or will it just be software upgrades on the current hardware currently out there? What's the roadmap? You know, is there any fear in buying the stuff now and how the standard will affect it, or I should just go straight forward and we should embrace it straight away?
So the question I think is, does the existing equipment you're buying today, what's the effect as the standard moves forward? So certainly from a Dolby perspective, we are committed to making sure that any equipment that for Dolby Atmos today that you purchase will operate with the standard when it rolls out. There has been some questions and thought, I mean, can you guarantee that? Are we sure you're not going to do hardware and stuff like that? But I'm pretty sure that with the people on the panel here, we're all building hardware today, and we're not going to build a standard that doesn't work on the hardware that we're shipping today. I think we all have the same goal there. So I would say there's nothing to worry about in that realm.
In Barco's case, I mean, we're a channel-based format today. As we add objects into the matrix, there will be upgrades that have to be applied. But we're not talking about image processing. We're talking about audio processing. So the burden on hardware is significantly less when it comes from an architecture standpoint. The AP24 was designed with this kind of path in mind from the very beginning. So there will be a straightforward path to be able to get an open object-based standard into the marketplace. But the final availability and timings and pricing and all of that stuff will have to be determined as the standards get applied and finished.
Yeah, I think there's no intent here, particularly from our vantage point, that nobody should be left hanging out to dry. If an exhibitor buys equipment today, no matter what it is, when there is an open interoperable object-based format, they should be able to use it somehow in their theaters and their systems. So I think that's part of the design goal of this whole effort, is to make sure everybody's covered.
Yes, I think QSC is really dedicated to making sure that the systems that you install today that you can use tomorrow. We want to be working with you to make sure that when you put in the B-chain equipment that you know that you can use that regardless of what happens on the front end. No matter how that immersive audio is delivered, that the systems that you install will be carrying you forward into the future.
Very good. Reminder that we do have open microphones for audience questions. I'm happy to fill the gap with other questions there, but I see one. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm David Pope of Music Screen. I just wondered, do you think immersive sound has anything to add to music production, and specifically live music into cinemas, and what are the technical challenges associated with that?
We've done a number of mixes and things with MDA, and we absolutely, MDA is not necessarily relegated to just a cinema format. We think that it's going to have, object-based audio is going to have a great deal of use in lots of different audio ecosystems, including music. done some live concert shows, not live on the fly, although that could be done. But yeah, we found that it's got a really, the same kind of benefits apply. It's pretty dramatic. You know, it's a really better experience, we think.
We get this question sometimes, and there are monstrous benefits for music. I mean, some of the scoring engineers are some of the more popular adopters and the first ones out there that said, hey, we want to mix in something that really brings this score to life, because the music attachment with the film kind of gives you this subconscious emotional context with the film that's very powerful. On live events that are either operas or otherwise, it's difficult to do immersive sound today in a live streaming of those concerts because of the infrastructure that's used. That's the problem there. If you want to go back and do a post-produced version of those, that's no problem. We can do that very easily. But since most of the time what we see in cinemas is simply either the DVB standards or the ATSC terrestrial broadcast type standards being used to distribute these pieces of content into cinemas, the pipelines don't support today what we would need to be able to put immersive sound into the cinemas live. But that can be addressed as we go forward.
Thank you.
I would also like to add that cinemas in their nature of their design are acoustically fairly plain and benign environments. They are intended to have very few reflections, and that increases the intelligibility of the dialogue. When you're going for live music performance, most often, if you look at concert halls, you really are trying to make the room part of that performance. It's a live environment, and the reflections are part of what you perceive as the audience, during these performances. And the exact same equipment that you would use for immersive audio is exactly what they use for electronic reverberation enhancement systems that are installed today. So yes, I think it's very practical to use the same type of equipment that we'd use for immersive sound to improve the acoustics of the cinema to make music performance better.
Some real opportunities for alternate content, sounds like. Another question?
Looking a bit more forward in terms of cinema likes to think that they can make an environment it's the cinema, it's the only place to go to see cinema is in the cinema. Now, as we know, in the home we've got the 5.1 systems. There's always a race between people trying to match the cinema in the home. Now, imagine immersive audio is coming along and it's going to make the cinema bigger and better. What's your opinion on how that's going to reflect on to the home market in those markets and how it may translate? And is it going to be able to match cinema? Do you have any comments or perception on that sort of thing in the future?
No, I do. And I work in cinema, so I have a biased comment. I don't think you can ever match a cinema experience. You can't match the sound pressure levels. I mean, I suppose in a crazy home you could. But in general, that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make sure this experience level in the cinema stays the absolute top bar. And the formats that we have today are trying to do that, and certainly this standard is going to try to do that as well. So we want to raise that experience continually.
Yeah, I think we would agree with that. I mean, the whole goal here with immersive audio in cinema is to get consumers to go and have that experience in the cinema. But notwithstanding, I can just see consumers racing to put 15 more speakers in their living room, and I'm being sarcastic, but I mean, we do think with object-based audio that this will lend itself outside the theater into interesting ways to render and present object-based audio, but I would agree that the goal is to keep this something where people say, I want to go hear this movie in a theater because that's the way I really want to hear it.
And just a quick comment, I indicated in the beginning, Barco is a company that does a B2B model. We don't have a consumer play. But in this move to object-based sound and open standards, it's not a question of experience so much as monetization of this whole value string. We don't have a play in the consumer market, so there's nothing in what we're doing to try to keep the premium cinema experience the best it can be to move anything into the consumer market. But certainly, once object-based audio is standardized and out there, you will see devices from tablets to home theaters to everything else utilizing these files. And the impact on the audio ecosystem will have an impact to the consumer market, for sure.
I do think that while I totally agree with the home, that we're not going to get the home experience, the fact that we mix movies in the object base is really a benefit for the studios to have the mixes with the different objects for re-rendering to new environments, whether it's the cinema or different downstream. So I think it's very good that the industry is moving in this direction from a professional. It's like an image going to shoot at 4K or 8K. On the shooting side, it's always good to oversample. In this case, it's a very good benefit to the mixers in particular, and the mixers love having the ability of moving objects around. Absolutely.
But that said, it sounds like the immersive sound experience at good sound pressure levels is still going to be a differentiator, where the theater experience will be unmatched in typical home environments, and therefore something that really sells more tickets at the end of the day. Another question here?
Yeah, good morning. I'm Rakesh from India. I'm an exhibitor. Like people around the world here, I just have to share a few information with you guys, and also like to put a question to Dean. See, the maximum ticket price per person we can charge in India is $2, irrespective of the technology you have. You have 3D, silver screen, Atmos, or it doesn't matter. $2 is a ticket what you can charge per person. So whatever investment we do that, we have to keep the technology for at least like 5 to 7 years so that we get our returns. So there is another installation going on for the past 1 year in India is the Dolby DS16. I don't know whether many people are aware of that. This DS16 is that you use the same Atmos unit but with a different, like a 16-channel sound format. Does this really serve the purpose, or is it just like a marketing strategy in going around in India just to put the Atmos product? So how do we go about that? And finally, these screens are still being branded as Atmos screens in India. Yeah.
So that particular, at the DS6, I'm not sure that's the name of it. So there's definitely a solution that has been rolled out for that market for exactly the reasons you bring up. You know, it's not so much about standards. I'd love to talk to you a bit after the talk if you want to talk a little bit about that product and how it works and stuff like that, and if it's right for you and those kinds of things. I'd love to keep this talk about standards, and I would say to that, I mean, we're going to support that as well as we move forward. So, I know it probably doesn't answer your question quite the way you want to, but I'd love to speak with you afterwards if you want to have a conversation about that.
The open standard, just to add to that comment, Dean, I mean, it won't matter what your system is as long as it's able to support the objects. Ours, theirs, DS6, that's a new one, by the way, I hadn't heard that, but we are quite involved in the India market, and that's not the only market where those types of pricing controls and restrictions apply, which is why we've tried to make Oro at least a very price competitive solution to be able to get implemented. And we have seen feedback that over time, that ticket upcharge that some may be enjoying right now for immersive audio, sound traditionally kind of gets marginalized. And does anybody charge extra for 5.1 from stereo that we had 20 years ago? So we have to be aware of these market conditions moving forward. Yeah.
Another question, go ahead please.
Excuse me, Spencer Harden, independent film distributor. Yesterday I went to the seminar with the Coalition for the DCDC, the Digital Cinema Distribution. Have you talked to them? Are they talking to you? Can this data get over their satellite?
Yes, it can get over satellite. So no question at all. SMPTE will package this standard as we already have a standard to carry immersive audio in the regular CPL. So anything that can understand a CPL will be able to carry this data.
It in fact is we've already delivered content in both formats.
Yeah. So that's how Apple is satellite DCDC.
I just got a question about if you currently got, say, 206 cinema, if we did want to go immersive, what do we need to do? Do we need to buy new amplifiers? Do we need to buy new audio processing, new speakers? What would the cost be? And, for each system, that type of thing.
Wow, it's all over the place. Barry, you're probably best, as the speakers and the amplifiers are actually the highest amount of the cost of the system. So first choose the system you like, and then work with an equipment vendor like Barry or others.
Yes, the equipment providers that are in the loudspeaker and amplifier business, all of us, not just QSC, we're working toward better, easier, simpler solutions. But when you do start to budget for an upgrade, you need to really take a close look at the system that you have installed and decide, are you really better off adding to that system, or do you really want to start from scratch with something that's going to raise the performance bar? Sometimes adding to an existing system works out, and sometimes it doesn't if the performance of that initial system wasn't very good. We do have a lot of capability of blending systems together, but work with your equipment provider, and it really it's specific to the auditorium as opposed to a general rule.
The Dolby one's quite expensive, the Barco one's a bit cheaper. I'm not sure about the costing of the MDI, or just wondering roughly, different costings.
Well, from the B-Chain perspective, the MDA and Atmos B-Chain is really going to be pretty similar. It just depends on how many speakers you choose to install if you're doing MDA. But the type of requirements per channel, I would say that you should install pretty similar systems for both MDA and Atmos. The Barco solution with a more channel-based approach actually would have some cost advantages because each individual loudspeaker wouldn't have to work quite as hard.
I think we have time for one more question here. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Kate from China, Beijing. I have two questions actually. The first one is about in the future you will build up a kind of interop immersive audio bit stream. Do you think that will be based on simply DCP requirement, or it will be interop BCP? Because currently it's a mess. There's no enforcement.
Should we do it together, Jerry?
Hopefully we can do it together. So that is one question. The second one is in your new standard. Will you addressing the loudness? I think that is a kind of feedback in the field. Say people are worried about we add more channels, more speakers in the theater. The loudness level is somehow out of control. Will you addressing these questions or requirement in the standard? Thank you.
Great questions. So the first one is we're essentially ready to launch SMPTE DCP now, and the addition right now, the way Dolby is issuing the Atmos system is a SMPTE DCP. It is not a interop DCP, and the intention going forward is that all immersive systems, except for Barco right now, will be going with SMPTE DCP, but hopefully we'll move everything to SMPTE DCP within a year.
Well, certainly nothing that comes out of the SMPTE process is going to be interop. So our standardization effort within SMPTE will produce SMPTE-based standards. So there won't, it'll be SMPTE.
That's the good news.
Yeah.
And the loudness question?
I think this is independent of the loudness. That is a very serious issue that needs to be addressed, but that's independent of what's going on with the setting of this standard. That's more of a mixing stage issue that needs to be dealt with.
It has been an issue. I will say it's safe to say that the interop immersive sound standard itself will not address sound pressure levels. Well, we're really out of time, but I would like to just go around the panel one last time with a 10-second answer to the question that we're probably all thinking about, which is, are there any challenges you could see that could thwart the benefits or the success in creating an interoperable distribution format? We've all decided that immersive sound is good. It builds audience interest. It's very good to have one common DCP format for that. What could possibly go wrong? Jerry, do you want to start with a 10-second answer?
Well, I think this was going to be successful long term. And so I don't think there's a challenge other than a challenge of time. And so we need to move quickly, and it is very hard to get lots of people together to move forward. So the challenge is time, but I think we'll get there.
I would say I really agree with Jerry. We will get there, but I would also encourage you to to move forward today. Don't be afraid to choose a path, make a decision, and get immersive sound into your cinema. And I think we will do a good job of making sure that that investment lasts.
I agree with Jerry and Barry. I think that I don't think there's any challenge as far as achieving success and creating a standard. I think the big challenge is, like I said before, is hopefully we'll create a value proposition that ticket buyers will care about.
Well, I don't see any challenge when eventually getting to the standards associated with stream and timing and synchronization. The security aspects of the architecture is something I think we need to spend some time to get clarity on to make sure that that can move forward effectively from a time perspective.
Not to counter Jerry, but to counter Jerry. If we go too fast, it's not going to work. So I think our time pressure is real, and we need to make sure that we do it right in that time space. So it's all going to come down to making sure we build the technology that everybody can use and works.
Great information, succinct answers, really appreciated. Please join me in thanking our esteemed panel this morning. Thank you for Joe DeMeo and the ICTA for putting this together, and thank you for attending. Have a great show.
That was good.